Hi, Lindsay. Welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me today, Chitan. I'm excited for our conversation.
Oh, 100%. I thought I'd give you this space now just to introduce yourself to the audience if you want to just go for it.
Sure. Lindsay Kelly. I am
Yeah.
currently with Sonar Software. We are an OSS BSS provider for internet service providers. So think of whenever you get your bill for your
Mhm.
monthly internet services, we're one of the operational and billing engines behind that for some of the tier two providers, smaller SPs, we like to say. And I've been there for almost a year now. I'm coming up on 1 year next month, and so very excited to have been able to join the team and such an amazing growth part of their
Yeah.
journey. So that's a little bit about me. I've been in marketing for a really long time. I'm not going to date myself, but I did live through the dot bomb, if that's helpful.
That's great. This is why I'm looking forward to all of your insights and everything that you're going to share. I'm wondering what are the differences you've seen in the company since you've joined?
Yeah, absolutely. I will say the company itself, it's such a great little company, started by folks who were in the broadband industry. So they used to be internet service providers themselves, or they've just been within that world for a long time, and they all came together. And the original founder saw a need and built a
Mm.
really great platform for folks to be able to get a lot done so that they could go out in their communities and really bridge that digital divide. It's, such something that I think you and I might even take for granted. I live near a major metropolitan area. I've never
Mm.
lived in a place where I didn't have internet. And to think that there are places still, within even the United States that don't have internet because they can't get it run to their location, whether it be because they're too rural, it's remote, the terrain doesn't allow. That's where a lot of our companies have begun. They popped up in these communities so they could serve their community. So it's a very tight knit, very
Mm.
inspirational and meaningful kind of a broadband provider that really
Yeah.
just wants to make sure that they're with their community. And so, when this founder started the organization with kind of that in mind, you grow. And as you grow, you have to change some of your infrastructure, change some of the way that you do things as you become more and more popular and you scale and you become more of a household name and staple, within the industry. So a private equity firm came in a couple years ago. They took over the organization and they've been really laser focused on building out a profitable business, but also one that maintains and holds onto the culture, the true culture of
Mm.
the organization. And I will say it really is a fantastic culture. One of the things that really kind of struck me when I first came in was just everybody was so, helpful and amazing, but they were all kind of working in their own areas, and there was some cross collaboration, but marketing really didn't get involved as much with these things. They kind of just waited a little bit for people to say,
Mm.
"Hey, marketing, we need something," and then usually it was like, "We need it tomorrow." So part of what I've seen that's really been inspirational is just the willingness of other departments to let marketing now come in and be a part of the go to market strategy. So having that permission almost to sit in
Mm.
on, the customer success team, to sit in with sales, to really play an instrumental part in how people are going to market. And basically all I did was I came in and I said, let's just do this. Let's go over here and do this. Let's figure out what's coming up next. Let's look at the roadmap. Let's start planning. And oh, by the way, what are some creative ideas that some of you guys have? And so the team has been able to do some really remarkable and amazing things with video, with animation, with documentary series, about these amazing stories of the community and providing broadband to these areas that just didn't have it before, and kind of bringing the humans to the forefront. It was a beautiful brand when I first showed up, and I'm like, where are the people? Where are the
Yeah.
people of the brand? People make up the culture. People like to do business with people. And so we've really highlighted getting some of our subject matter experts out in front when it comes to going to market through different distribution channels. So it's been a big change, a big difference. People feel more empowered to be able to do these kinds of things, and I think they're enjoying it very much.
When you first spoke to me about this company, the image that stuck in my mind still till this day is during the pandemic, how many communities were, needing to serve, either they might be schools and they had to serve their students, and there would be like outdoor get-togethers next to bus stops and kind of points where you had public internet. And so this kind of this truly is a community-driven need that then spurred on this company. So I can't get that image out of my head, and I think it's, as you say, it's like this is an amazing brand. I'm so glad that it's growing, and as you grow, you have many more departments, many more people, and a whole ton of new operations that need to come into play. And so I think you mentioned how you've seen the different departments of the company kind of operating together more now. And then as a consequence of that, you're able to kind of get your subject matter experts out front, and all this kind of people first kind of angle. So I think in that journey right now, I want to kind of jump into the operational side of it. Like, what kind of things were you doing to break down those silos? Yeah,
That, that, that's a great question. One of the
yeah,
first things we started doing was really meeting with the sales team. And it's not that it wasn't being done before. I think it was just not being captured in a way that was able to be used for marketing out in the world, and getting just access to some of the recordings from the sales team. They were very
mm,
forthcoming with, hey, listen, this is my best demo I've ever done. Here are some of the really good ones. This one had really great questions. And being able to take that and say, okay, based upon this, what we're hearing on these calls is gold. The answer to most of the questions was relatively the same. A lot of the questions were the same. And so taking that and producing
mm,
content around that. And sometimes that was interviewing subject matter experts internally within
mm,
different accounts, the account managers, or producing webinars. So we started to being able to take those kinds of things and bring people to the forefront. And one of my favorite things that we were able to do is I have a very good relationship also with the head of our product team. And so we're constantly meeting a couple times a week so that we make sure we know what features are coming, how they're going to benefit the customers, how they're going to benefit, our future customers. And one initiative that we put together was creating a video newsletter every quarter of all of the new features that were being rolled out from Sonar. And so he produces a video for us. All he has to do is stare at the camera. We give him a script to start with based upon everything we know, because we attend, their demos, their meetings, what's coming up. We know what's coming up, so we can produce that for them. And then they make
mm,
tweaks to make sure that we get it right. And we've had our product managers actually individually, the products that or the features that they're working on, they'll do their little portion of the script, and then the head of product will do a portion. Sometimes he does the whole thing. It depends on their capacity.
mm.
And then we have a brilliant internal animation expert who takes that and creates it into like a fun and playful less than 5-minute video. And then we chop it into pieces and we can share that on Feature Fridays, so people see like, hey, there's this
Nice.
great new feature. Hey, we have multi-factor authentication now. Everybody wanted it. Here it is. So things like that have been a lot of fun for us. And just making sure that we're meeting with the teams is a big part of it. Another really exciting piece was we actually had somebody on the product and engineering side who was working
Mm,
on a challenge that I think our industry, especially our guys, were going to face. Where this broadband, like when you go to select your internet, it's like, do you want this speed, or this speed? And half
yeah.
the time, you're not exactly sure what that means. When you go to the grocery store and you pick up a box of cereal, you can read all the nutrition labels. And so
Right.
now what's happened is the FCC has said that not only the big guys, but now the little guys have to provide that information to the consumer. And
Oh
that's
wow.
difficult to do when you have all these different
It's
options
true.
as a business. So we produced, with the idea coming from one of the people on the product and engineering team, we produced a free FCC label generator. They were like, we're building it anyway for our customers to make it easy. Why don't we
Mm,
provide a version that's a little scaled down, because we won't have all their data, but at least it gets them started and it's helpful for some of these folks who
mm.
might not even have a billing system, that's not homegrown, but they still need to produce these labels. So that idea came from somebody who just sent me a Slack message. Hey, I was thinking, so like those are the little things that start
So
happening
interesting.
when you just raise your hand and say, let's just talk.
So am I right in kind of picturing that in your organization, marketing is at the center. And this might just be an artifact of me talking to the marketing person, but I feel like the way that it's kind of constructed is that you guys are at the center of a specific stream of information, and that is, customer to product information. So you have on the sales side transcripts being produced, and those transcripts are being kind of processed. And I want to get into how you're processing that, but they're being processed, brought into marketing. Then those insights are being spread back out into product and also into sales as things that they can kind of say and do. And then from the product side, you've also got an inward feed. You've got inward kind of information as well, which is ideas that your product team has that you guys can support basically the promotion of ahead of time. So is that more or less kind of like the right kind of picture of what's happening?
Exactly.
It's
Exactly.
good.
And even and with this FCC label creation
Yeah.
maker, she even said, and you can make them fill out a form before they do it. Then you could capture leads. So it was great because yes, we want to help the
Yeah,
community, but we also want to try to see if we can bring more people into the Sonar family. So it was just really,
exactly.
it was inspiring to see how minds had kind of opened a little bit just by starting to have these conversations.
Mm. I think this. I, I want to get into how you're exactly kind of pulling the information from sales, but I think it's worth mentioning at this point that in another podcast, I think it also might be worth going into the product side of what you guys are doing and how you guys are interacting with product and developing, I guess, roadmaps that allow you to align and this kind of feedback loop that you have on that side. But I feel like it's a whole other kind of conversation that needs to be done justice in its own kind of with its own time.
I think
So
so too.
yeah, yeah. I've made a mistake in many of these podcasts of just kind of like diving into it out of curiosity and then just kind of derailing the whole thing. So I'm glad that
So
you're
we'll
up
hold
for it.
on that. We'll
Yeah,
put a
we'll
pin
hold on it.
in that one.
Exactly. Cliffhangers. So yeah, with sales, how are you processing this information? Um, yeah, let's just start there. Like, how are you processing this information?
So there's a couple different ways that we're doing it, and it's actually it's a lot of fun, and I think the sales guys are enjoying it as well. So one of the ways that we're doing it now is as they have amazing demos or
Mm,
conversations, they are sharing their Zoom recordings and the transcripts with us. And so
okay.
then what we're able to do is inside of ChatGPT with a walled off instance that is
Mm,
secure, we are able to put that transcript into a custom GPT that is completely
mm,
private and only the marketing team is using it right now. And then we're able to go in and ask specific questions. And so we'll upload that transcript into our, sales guy bot and
mm,
we'll say, "Hey, what are the biggest challenges that this organization is or that these organizations are facing collectively?" And then we're able to get answers to that and continue to dig into it. What does that mean when they can't do this? Yeah, what did they express about this? How do they feel about that? What are
mhm,
roadblocks that they're experiencing? And based upon that, we're able to take that information and come up with ideas for answering their questions, having that available to the sales team, having it available out in multiple different distribution channels, showing that we understand this is their pain. This is a challenge that they're experiencing. And so that drives a lot of how we create the content so that we can get the word out that yes, this is a challenge for you because your ultimate goal is not to be hanging out in your billing system or your field tech app trying to get everything scheduled. Your goal is to make sure that you're able to connect people to the internet so that they
mm.
can learn, they can grow, they can experience the world through the internet. So we want to make sure they understand. Here's how we can help you solve that challenge and take a lot of hours off your plate.
Yeah, that's really incredible. So let me try and like kind of categorize the kind of information that you're getting from these sales transcripts. And again, like you just tell me if I'm kind of yeah thinking about it right. So I guess from this you can get from what you said you can get the problems that the customers are facing because sales are obviously objection handling all the time, and you pick those things up. You can figure out, you said you got your best salespeople, those transcripts, so you can figure out the best responses, I guess, that were the most influential, and use that language Plus, you mentioned like things like you can figure out, what's kind of next for the customer as well. Is that right? Like you can figure out what kinds of things that they would want, and the kinds of, yeah. I mean, is that
No,
right?
that makes complete sense, and that's part of what we're looking to do in 2025 is now working with a lot of the account management team to say, "We want
Mm.
your recordings too," so that we
Ah,
can start to listen to, "Hey, like, wouldn't it be great if Sonar could do this? Or wouldn't it be great if, I could solve this challenge? You guys probably don't do that, but now we've got the ideas, and now we're able to again feed this into a custom private bot and be able to say, let's look at
mm,
collectively what are these guys asking for. And so we are doing that manually right now. And so we've got some pretty amazing tips of the spears at all the different department heads who are constantly talking and, hey, heard this, did this. But it's another level to be able to ask very quickly, a private chatbot or a private
yeah.
GPT. Hey,
Which
what
can,
are you hearing? What are you seeing? And then think of that even from a new sales rep or a new account manager perspective on the phone with somebody. I don't know the answer to this question. And then being able to quickly get that answer because you're actually getting it directly from your peers who have already probably had that question asked. So trying to find
mm,
efficiencies with some of these GPTs. A lot of people just go in and say, write me a blog post about XYZ. And then they're surprised when the result is less than optimal. But if you give it the right kind of information and you use it in ways that help with efficiencies like this, I would never, ever just say, write me a blog post and then put it out. It would be not helpful at all.
That's yeah. I mean, look, this is really interesting because when you're trying to break down silos between different departments, one of the biggest challenges is to like kind of have enough of a kind of like a reward for the other departments to be taking part in this, that they want to keep it going. Like I tried to do this before the advent of like AI, and literally trying to encourage people to meet with me or to let me into their conversations when they're having the meeting with sales, would just like kind of let me into one of their one of their uh, meetings. But it's exhausting and they don't want to keep on doing this. But if there's another advantage, strategic advantage, like, for example, onboarding time of a new sales rep becomes X times faster. It's like, yeah, okay, we'll carry on doing that. We'll carry on giving you your insights, marketing. And so that's really, really cool, that you have that paradigm set up through this. Yeah, and I'm wondering, like, do you get any kind of insights from this which kind of change how you think about go to market? Maybe to do with what you've prioritized as your go to market strategy, even budgets. Is there any kind of has there been any impact on that?
Absolutely. So one of the hot topics right now is the BEAD funding. So basically, a
Mm,
lot of these broadband internet service providers are applying for funds so that they can put fiber in the ground. And there's all these new neighborhoods and all of this, and so it's very expensive to run that. So the government has put a program in place, multiple programs in place that they can apply for this. And the challenge that we actually started to hear was,
mm,
well, I got it, but I don't know everything I have to do now. And so we created a toolkit that, okay, so you got your BEAD funding. What now?
mhm,
And so we were able to call upon experts, listen to conversations, take data that we had, that we could find online, and consolidate it down to be able to create a toolkit that kind of helps here step by step what you have to do in order to
mm,
make sure that you're dotting your i's and crossing your t's when it comes to this funding, because
mm.
you have to then go back and report on it. So that was an insight that was very exciting for us to discover.
Interesting.
And my right hand person was one of the ones that discovered that, and so she said, let's build this. And so we did, and it launches next week. So we're
Oh,
very
awesome.
excited for that campaign. Yeah.
I think in a way you've already answered my next question, which is, have you found any insights that helped you capitalize on a market opportunity ahead of your competitors? I Let me know if that was also.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that. We haven't seen that in
Yeah.
with a lot of our competitors right now. We're seeing a little bit of I guess it's the best form of flattery is to be copied. So we are seeing a lot of the
Good
things that
copy.
we're putting in place now popping up in some of our
Mm,
competitors. So we're trying to make sure that we're staying ahead and listening to the customers and listening to the market to say, what do you need?
mm,
And that's really, and we'll dig into this obviously with the roadmap discussion, but that's really what we're trying to do is it's not something we do. We don't do anything with, hey, here's how you're, here's a checklist inside of Sonar for your bead fund. No, it's just here's an
mhm.
educational piece that's going to
Yeah.
help you to make sure that you're able to lay that fiber in the ground to enhance the community. So
Mhm.
that's why we build it.
It's just fascinating to me because it's one of the I think the challenges that we have at the moment is for marketing to become that kind of bringing back that kind of position that it has as being the voice of the customer in the company and being able to listen directly to what's like as you said, the wants and needs, which is fundamental to marketing, the wants and needs of the customers. I want to ask you a question that let me know if it's a good question or not. But this style of getting these insights from sales, how do you feel that it compares to, or maybe compares is the wrong word, but how does that compare to sitting with a customer directly as marketing and having an open-ended conversation with them? Like compared to all other organizations that I've spoken to, this is like that massive leap ahead where marketing is now at least getting their ears to the customer on a real time basis. But does it replace, or would you say you would still like does having open-ended conversations still have a unique place? Is that's the question? Um,
Absolutely. There is
yeah.
no question that sitting down
Yeah.
one to one, human to human, and that's been one of our biggest initiatives is just, the human to human aspect of
Mm,
business. And so we have, customer advisory boards that, marketing is able to sit in on. And so we've got,
nice.
a pocket of customers who are very happy to share insights. We have some other things on the roadmap that we're going to be doing with customers this year that are brand new and that
Mm,
gives an opportunity for the customer to share and vocalize in a safe space, inside of a user group, an in-person user group, guided and led by your product team and your client success team.
I
And
see.
it's a place that marketing can listen and learn, but it's that relationship and conversation between your customer and their account manager and the people in the product team, so that they can learn and understand what's needed, because that's really where you get the best ideas. And I love watching our Slack channel when customers have ideas and they share that with whether it's the support team or their account management team. Ideas flood through that channel all the time, and
Mm,
a lot of that is where we get the ideas come from for what's next in the feature and the roadmap.
that's excellent. I mean, so did I hear right that this is already taking place or is yet to come in 2025?
So the customer advisory board has been around for a while,
Okay.
and that's been extremely beneficial and helpful. But the user groups are starting in 2025. The first one is in
Okay.
February. Mhm.
So I'd like to ask you, like, what are the, because these are two different sources of information, customer information for you in marketing, right? One is coming from directly from those day-to-day conversations that are happening between sales and the customers, which are going to be conversations about closing the deal. Really, that's going to be that's where it's taking place. And then you're going to have these conversations which are more about uh, in terms of I'm kind of answering my own question. I realize then you're having these conversations directly with the customers, which inform you about kind of the features and I guess your positioning in the market, if it's right, if it needs to be updated, your messaging, if it's resonating, or if it needs to be updated for you kind of pick up on in these kind of conversations in these conversations with customers directly. So, so I'd like to ask you, what are the differences that I kind of answered already? What are the differences in the types of information you're getting from what's the value of difference in value of this kind of sales-led
Yeah.
information source versus directly sitting with product and customer success and the customers, yeah, and having open-ended conversation.
Yes, and it's a very good question, and I think one that sometimes we don't often get asked as much because we're always driven. Marketing as a whole, marketing is typically driven. You bring in the leads. It's about bringing in the leads. It's acquisition, acquisition, acquisition. And so that's a different conversation than retention, retention, retention. And I
Yeah.
think that having the customer insights and keeping happy customers and giving them what they need is
Mm,
vital to growth, because churn, it happens, but
mm,
you want to make sure that you're able to help minimize that churn by making sure customers know about features, about things that are coming, about things that matter to them. And it's actually driven us. We now have brought a customer marketing manager who starts in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks. And it's going to make, I think, a big difference for the customers. Just having that communication channel, listening, understanding what they're asking for,
mm.
being in the places where they're spending the time, whether that's on Facebook, in Reddit, wherever they're hanging out, making sure we have somebody who's there to support them and answer their questions, and then listen. Really, at the end of the day, sometimes customers just want to be heard, and and they need certain things to make their business run smooth for their customers, and that's our objective.
That's that's really insightful. And I think that holistic view of marketing is definitely it's refreshing to hear because quite often it's always just about acquisition. You know, how can we get more people through the door? And then retention is kind of, by the wayside. And it's always, yeah, kind of it's one dimensional, but you're right, churn does happen and this and it's and
and
marketing is
and
a
it
part of
does.
yeah.
Yeah, marketing is such a big part of it. And you look, every industry is going to be a little different. Like your TAM
Mm.
is your TAM. I
Mm.
can't generate, 2,000 leads if my TAM is 2,500. it's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
not it's just not possible. So how do you look to grow? You look to grow within your existing customers who are your champions, your
Mm.
advocates,
Mhm.
who you have helped to make them happy,
Mhm.
given them what they need for their business, and then look at different ways to grow the business in different channels and different markets. But it's you can't get blood from a turnip, I say. When it's like, bring in more leads, I'm like, from where?
Yeah, yeah.
So my TAM is this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see this, so, like, these huge email marketing campaigns or maybe even ad campaigns that some companies run, and then they suddenly feel a drop off in response rates and the whole thing becomes very inefficient. But there was never a calculation of the TAM in the first place. And the marketer always gets hit in the end, like, why aren't you making it work? Well, we sent a million emails to a million different people. Maybe that's it. We saturated it. So, and it makes me also wonder as well, like how is this, if at all, how is it affecting the way that you're thinking about segmentation, the way that you're thinking about developing ideal customer profiles too?
Yeah, it's our ideal customer profiles and our buyers, our the buyer personas. We're pretty well situated there. Like, we've got a really solid idea of who they are and how we want to, what the value propositions are for each individual one. So we really try to hone in on that. And so, one of the things that we'll do, just kind of a little tip or trick that I've always liked to follow is, how many, I call it Thanksgiving turkey. How many different ways can I slice and dice this piece of content so that it's meaningful to multiple different people in multiple different formats? Do they like to read something really long? Do they like to watch something that's really short? But understanding your buyer persona, if you've got a really amazing, let's say, guide, and it's, the guide to how to grow your ISP, for instance,
Mm,
and that's going to speak to a very broad general audience. But what's really important to the CFO is going to be very different from what's important to your, network operations person. And
right.
so how do you take that content and then slice and dice it into something that's meaningful for those individual personas, so that you're not just
Mhm.
blanketing them with this thing that they have to comb through and dig through, but going back and finding those nuggets from, your account representatives, from your, sales reps, from all these different people, to say, yeah, these are the things that matter to these guys, and making
Mm.
sure that you get to the point, because they have things to do, they're busy. So capturing their attention, you don't have a whole lot of time to do that. So taking these things and customizing them for your individual
Mm.
personas is really important. And so, just having recently started having these conversations about the customer side of the house, the people who are actually in there using it, your CFO who probably signed the contract and sent the check is going to be very different from the end user who's going to be using this thing from day to day. So think about your features and your products inside of your products and how different people who use the system are using it in different ways, whether it's reporting or the billing or
Mm.
scheduling field techs. Again, you're right back to the same thing. You have to understand those people so you can help create content that's really meaningful to them. We're in a very personalized kind of a time in our lives where, if I go to Amazon, I know, and I look for something, it's like, oh, well, people that looked for this too. And based upon your history, and it's like, oh gosh, I did need this, crazy corkscrew wine opener thing. This is great. I'm going to order it. But if it showed me like, oh, hey, like here's a jump rope. I don't want a jump rope. What am I going to do with a jump rope? I want wine. So it's about knowing, just
Yeah.
like in the B2C world where we're so used to this, starting to evolve into that from the B2B side
Mm.
of the house too, and understanding how
Mm.
people need to use the product and creating the content and sending the information that's relevant to them instead of trying to force them to dig through the content because you have this one big thing that you want to send.
Right. Right. That's really insightful. It reminds me of something that I recently heard. Like, every single customer consists of a bunch of different stakeholders, and this includes what you're kind of mentioning, that all these different. You got the buyers, you got the CFOs, you got the champions of the product. Like, there's so many people, and each one of them are going to have different needs to engage with you, different ways of using the product, different ways of perceiving the product. And so, yeah, you have to, it's just more detailed, right? And so you're looking at the whole buyer journey. You're looking at how you can understand the needs of everyone in the buyer journey and then fulfill the needs of all those different people as marketing, create the materials that everyone needs to enable them to do this. And again, that kind of message of the need in this time to become closer to your customer is coming through here. Like, why should marketing have all these insights? Because otherwise you're unable to have this level of fidelity in your messaging to all these different, it's of our time, right? This is more important than ever before. um oh
Exactly. And it's our job as marketers to also help the
mm,
rest of the organization understand how we can do that. Because
mm,
otherwise, I mean, a lot of organizations that, I'm sure you've talked to or I've talked to or I've been in, they're like, "Oh, just, marketing sends out emails and makes things pretty."
mm,
I
mhm.
can't make anything pretty, just for the record. But that's why I have great people on my team that can do that, right? so so it's really important to be kind of your own champion for your team, to say, step up and say, this is what we can do to help.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, this is kind of like, because when you were talking about how you have those customer meetups and there's, product and customer success, and there's marketing. And I was kind of thinking to myself, then what, is marketing just a fly on the wall in these conversations? Not in your company, but in general, if this were to take place. And then from what you just said, it kind of hit home that we're the ones that are tasked with understanding how you translate those conversations into things that actually have a impact on these customers, actually persuade them, actually move the needle. It's the how that is a special place in marketing, because product does not necessarily thinking about that. They're thinking about building the next feature. Customer success is not thinking about the how. They're thinking more about how do we create a better experience, maybe on the service side. But yeah, marketing is that kind of, it's the brain in the company which is processing the how of how do you actually translate this into something that impacts and persuades uh, everyone in the buyer journey so that the whole company can operate more smoothly. Yeah, that's
And I
interesting.
think
So yeah.
I felt a little bit of a moment of just like, I don't know, a little mini
Mm,
moment of joy when another executive member of the team came to me. We just had our quarterly leadership meeting, and we have a lot of things on our slide as things that need to get done.
mm,
And so, we called it a plan on a page, and said,
yeah.
here's all the things in just little boxes. Here's the month, here's the week, did not dates, but just basically, okay, we've got this event, we're going to launch a campaign, we have a feature coming out, we have this, we have this, we have this. And one of the leadership members came to me afterwards and said, "I'm really sorry. I did all of my goals and my KPIs and my,
Mm.
based upon the OKRs, and I didn't think to at least sit down and kind of talk to you about the fact that we need you to help us get this message out. And I was like, no, it's great. Yeah, let's like, we'll start now. And just those little things where it's like, no, I see how, you're planning. You have all these plans already in place, and I need to be on that plan on a page so that,
Mhm.
we know that we can get our message out for what we're doing very successfully. So, little moment of
Absolutely.
joy.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in 2025. This is definitely rare. It's great. It's great to hear. I don't know. So I have two questions. You can pick the question you want to answer. One would be, you know, is there a specific campaign that you want to walk me through? I know you've spoken about different campaigns already, but just in case there was a specific one that you wanted to walk through and kind of explain the results of. But if you feel like you've explained that well enough, another question, what tools are you using to make all these processes flow? I'll leave that to you, which one you
Yeah.
want to choose. Yeah.
Well, I'll jump back to a specific campaign that we just
Okay.
recently completed at the end of 2025. We have some amazing partners that we work with, and
Mm.
when you're able to extend your reach, even beyond, your own customer base, and you're able to work collaboratively now outside the company with a great partner. We just did an amazing webinar followed by a series of a LinkedIn campaign as well. Taxes, as strange as it sounds, are a challenge when you're in different some states and have different taxes in different counties, and then they cross lines and they're in other states, and how do you apply the sales tax? And so, as crazy as that might sound, it's such a hot topic. And so, being able to promote it before and after, and
Yeah.
have this partner come on, and they showed up day one like, we have a whole slide deck, and we're like, oh, this is amazing, great, okay. You've done most of the work. But those are the kinds of campaigns, and then at the end of it, to have them call us all back together, celebrate what a great campaign it was, and the leads that we were able to share. It just, it was a really nice moment as well. Another moment of joy, Chitan. I love the moments of joy. So that was a good
Absolutely.
campaign.
I think what you kind of touched on there was the importance of knowing your customer again, because or honing in on a customer, because that's how you you know get this very very niche thing of tax, but it's a very impactful thing. It's hard to believe just from the outside, but once you're inside that niche, once you've honed in, suddenly all these things start pouring out. That's really cool. And like, what kinds of metrics are you tracking for to kind of measure the success of these campaigns and measure? Yeah, let's just start with that. What kind of metrics are you
So
tracking?
yeah, no, there's a couple different metrics we use because we're always beholden to the attribution software as marketers, but that doesn't mean that that's the 100% black and white truth. And so, yes, we can run these campaigns, and we can say X number of people registered for this, and then this many showed up. They stayed for this long. They raised their hand afterwards and said, "Yes, I want to talk to you and I want a demo." So obviously, we count those. We count the MQLs. We count the SALs, SQLs. Those are all great, kind of indicators for us. I care about the opportunities, and eventually I
Mm,
desperately care about the closed one. But we want to make sure that we get the right folks into the hands of the sales reps. But one of the things that I think has been really interesting is the recent discussion around brand. And when I look at some of our metrics and I see that the large majority is coming in through branded search or direct traffic, things like that, that shows me other things I can't track and measure are working. Because think about it this way: how often do you go into Slack and share a link with your team from
yeah.
some amazing product or some insightful piece of content or some video that then leads you to another link, to another link, to another link? And that you try to go back and it's like, oh, direct traffic. Okay, great. Well, how is that, direct traffic? A lot of times when we look at things like LinkedIn advertising,
Mm,
or we're doing a lot around subject matter experts and having them really have a strong voice on LinkedIn, just so they're known and seen, so that our brand is out there, people know the brand. That's kind of a soft, harder metric to track. So one of the things we started doing was adding to our forms, which is out
mm,
of the book of Chris Walker, from Refine Labs, if anybody has not heard of him. Just ask, how did you hear about us in your form? And that has been such a huge game changer for us in our strategy for 2025. We're seeing all kinds of different things that you would never think of that you cannot track. And it's really been able
Great.
to give us some validation, because you look at Salesforce and it's like, oh, all this stuff over here that you were doing, I don't see it on here. Well, it's not trackable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so it's
Oh,
it's
yeah.
it's hard. It's nice to have some data that really is able to help guide you, and that's all it can do. It can guide you. At the end of the day, there's lots of different ways that people come into your funnel. I mean, I could have a neighbor who owns an ISP, and I don't know it, and we start talking
Mm.
one day, and the next thing you know that's a referral. But if he just goes and types in sonar.software, I don't know that.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Exactly. I think that's the right approach. Like to have this kind of more, it's like treat it as a guide rather than some sort of a pinpointed, highly refined way. Because you won't get that, and you don't need that. The fact that you're getting direct traffic at all means that people have heard of your brand and are searching it directly, and branding traffic. That's a great indicator. I wonder, maybe you don't have numbers on this yet, or I'm not sure, but now have you seen kind of like cost per acquisition for each customer before you started this kind of integrated and marketing with sales, and after, like did the cost of acquisition kind of go down? If you got those kinds of numbers too?
the cost of acquisition has gone down a little bit.
Okay.
So when I first started the organization, we were extremely event heavy with not a whole
Mm,
lot of budget to try other things. So being able to ask these other questions is what has really helped us open up the ability
mm,
to try and test and do different things. So we had a very high cost per acquisition with events. However, they are very large accounts. So when you look at your lifetime
yeah.
value, that's what you have to focus on sometimes, because
Interesting.
if I were to just look at the black and white and go, oh my gosh, it cost me, thousands of dollars for an MQL and blah, 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 blah. Yes, but the lifetime value of the
Mm,
customer that came in because of the caliber of the event that we were
right.
at makes a difference. Whereas I can look there and go, oh, well, it's only $150 per MQL for inbounds. Okay, but they're smaller. So you've got small,
Mm,
medium, and large, and you have to differentiate your MQLs. Not every MQL is going to be the same. You've got some
mm.
guys who maybe only have 5,000 subscribers in their little internet service provider, and then you've got some that are 100,000. That's a big difference. So you need to, not every MQL is created equal.
That is super interesting. Yeah, and absolutely, absolutely. And you already mentioned that you're getting better people into the hands of your sales team, and so the quality's improving there as well. So if you get that feedback from the sales team, that's already a sign that you're getting better people, and then maybe your churn is going down. All these other things at the same time. So it's very interesting. It's very interesting. But we spoke about tools earlier on. I don't know if you want to mention some tools that people can pick up on,
Oh, sure. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
then yeah, we'll leave
All
them
right.
with that.
So I'm gonna drop a couple tools that I'm loving. One
Mm,
is a tool called Letter Drop. Letter
okay.
Drop it works with LinkedIn, and so it is an AI platform that allows you to take some of your, so you can connect Zoom to it. So let's say I'm a sales rep, I have a fantastic call, I have all these great insights with somebody. I can go now into LinkedIn, there's an extension for Letter Drop, and I can say, okay, here's my call, it's attached through Letter Drop. Do me a favor, go in and use this template that's my voice and all these other things, and generate, the agnostic of the company, take company name out and everything. Give me the story of this customer, his challenge, his pain, what he's going through, and and then you tweak it, obviously, because you never want to put anything out just straight AI, but it's your voice. It's your
Mm,
voice that you had this conversation with a customer, and now it understands your voice. It can help you tell the story, and
that's
it
interesting.
takes significantly less time. But now the sales rep is out there helping other people say, yes, this is the problem I have. They're pushing it on LinkedIn. You have all of your colleagues at your organizations and sometimes outside of the organization liking, sharing, engaging. but it's a really great engagement tool. And I think that right now is one of my favorites. So we'll leave it at that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm going to check that out. Sounds very, very useful. Okay. Well, thanks, Lindsay. This has been a really insightful conversation. And let's continue it with the product side soon if you're happy to do that.
Absolutely. Anytime, Chitan.
Okay, 100%, 100%. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's such a good time.